Hello, I'm your host, Dr. Michael Lynch, and I would like to welcome you back to one of my little shows. Today we'll talk about created beings, beings that are genetically modified and created. Now, the whole idea here is we as human beings look at the genetic process as random, like Darwin's theory of evolution or survival. That is not the case. If you have a civilization that's several millions of years old and hasn't been constantly rebooted because of one thing or the other, you will then start to refine and collect specimens for DNA. Now, everything on our planet shares similar DNA. Ants have the same or similar DNA that I have. So do raccoons and chimpanzees and things like that. Many of the species out there in space and also on the planet have more DNA than others. A chimpanzee has more DNA than I do. An octopi has more DNA than I do. So there are several creatures on this planet that are surviving quite well, and they have more DNA than I do. Well, that's okay. But if our DNA was selected, then we could develop species from selected DNA. We could create beings or create species from all of the DNA in our lexicon. So I have a lexicon of 1,000 creatures, let's say. Then it would be easy for me to go in, pick and pull from that lexicon to build a new species. When that would be stronger, faster, more intelligent, more adaptable than this selected DNA right here. I could increase the longevity. I can better the eyesight. They can increase the size of the heart. We could pick and choose from the DNA in almost every species known on the planet and then put it into a software program that would run that. Now, on a basic level, dealing with bioweapons, let's say, we can use CRISPR to find how to make a great bioweapon. We can also take the same CRISPR and develop the antitoxin to that bioweapon so we can survive the vaccine. But what if we took that one step further? Now, we know that AI is becoming developed and well used, especially in the art field. There are programs called Crayon and Dolly where you can go in, type in blue apples, and the AI will create a life photo of blue apples amongst red apples. It's anything you want. Within seconds, it will actually tell you it can come up with 6 or 8 different varieties of what you've asked for in about a minute, 20 seconds. AI is now being used to create spaceships. AI is now being used to create works of art in any style you want. So what if we go one step further and take that AI and we put it in a genetic code and say, we would ask the AI, we would like a species for this particular planet. Now, it doesn't have to be Earth. It can be any planet that we come across. But we would like to build a species, an intelligent one. We put it on that planet, seed that planet with this species. We could be the progenitors of that species, just like we're the progenitors of a lot of software, a lot of computers, a lot of cell phones, and a lot of people. But this way we can find and choose the DNA that we think will exist on that planet that we can associate with. We can have a common bond with. So we know that we're on 14 other planets besides Earth. And there's no intelligent life on that planet. There's no Neanderthals, there's no Cro-Magnon, there's no evolution of that. They're just planets with wildlife. You know, buffaloes and deer and fish, all amongst their own species and kind. But there's no intelligent species there. No one to build or mine for minerals. No one there to talk to. No one there to advance into a galactic society. So what if we take AI and CRISPR and we put them together and we say, build me a species that has these requirements, and we type them in. Common language. We want blue eyes and blonde hair. We want them to be 6 foot tall with good muscles, a strong heart, feet that can hold up under different weights and measures. We need them to breathe a certain type of oxygen, not necessarily the best, but a certain type. So we need to modify their lungs. We need to make sure that they have opposable thumbs and a reasonable hearing, sense of smell, vision. Maybe their eyes need to be a bit larger, or maybe they need to be a little bit smaller. Maybe the sun is a little bit too bright, or the days are shorter and the nights are longer. So the whole idea is, if we go out to a planet that is devoid of what we would call intelligent life, something like us, through the AI that we have now, we have the ability to build it from the cell up, from the DNA up. And we can run thousands of these programs. AI could run thousands of them in 5 minutes. Every combination that we request. And it would show us exactly what that creature would look like. What are the chemical compositions? What is the blood type? How the cell will divide and create that life. What information is in the cell? The AI will tell us. Medical science will make a tremendous, revolutionary jump into created beings, modified for what environment we want. What if someone wanted to live on the bottom of the ocean? Those simple requirements, we could then go to AI and say, I want to breathe water and I want pressures of tremendous amounts. The AI will go ahead and do it, take whatever information from the cellular composition, from our lexicon, and put it all together. And show you that, you need gills, your eyes need to be a little bit different, your bones need to be a little bit different, your intestines will definitely need to be a little bit different, your lungs, hearing. What if AI is the secret bullet, the magic weapon, the magic wand that just creates life? Extraterrestrials have been flying around our galaxy for a very long time. Millions, let's say millions of years. Hundreds of thousands, I'm sure. And they see planets. The Anunnaki claim that they created us. They designed us and created us. But we had to be born on the planet, and we had to be born of a certain genetic code, because why? The planet requires that. The human residence requires that any biological form has to be born on the planet in order to survive it. The North Pole and South Pole is going to shift. We need to be able to survive that. That's why humans are a very delicate species, but they're also massively adaptable. Consider the fact that our junk DNA, and a lot of it's junk we don't really use, but in extreme cases, solar flares, earthquakes, changing of the poles, whatever, we can adapt, we can overcome. Look at Krakatoa and all the other volcanoes that put debris in the air. The human race had to overcome that. The adaptation grew into different branches, what we call the human tree. And anyone can tell you, you don't have to be a rocket scientist, you could be a an armchair sociologist and figure out we don't really belong here. Our DNA is not for this planet. It is not. But we are adaptable to the environment, so we can be put onto the environment. The Sahara Desert, the North Pole, Alaska, South Pole, the equator. Our body temperature remains almost identical. The oxygen we breathe is identical. The lifespans are identical, except when you live in high polluted or high radiated areas. We're so much alike, but at the same time, we're massively adaptable. Consider the fact that your body temperature is the same as your next door neighbor's. Your heartbeat is beating the same process as your next door neighbor's. We're all inside almost identical. And that includes our DNA, our genetic code. Because why? Somehow we are designed to be adaptable to survive. It's not the survival of chimpanzees, it's not the survival of dolphins. Even though they're intelligent and they acclimate with their environment, mankind is the only one that doesn't. It doesn't reach balance with its environment. It's extremist. We cut down all the trees and wonder why we don't have any oxygen. We pollute all of the rivers and wonder why there's no fish. We're extremists. We have bad habits. We're like a virus, consuming and putting nothing back. They say if you put a virus in a sack of sugar, or a small insect in a sack of sugar, mites, let's say, they'll eat up all of it and keep reproducing until there is no more sugar, and then they will die of starvation. I can take cells that are genetically lactose intolerant, and put them in milk, put them in lactose. And one out of the 4 petri dishes will modify its DNA in order to survive on a basic cellular level. That's phenomenal. So we're above the virus, but we relate to the virus. We have the same DNA as the virus, but yet we're different than the virus on some levels. We think we're important because someone has told us we're important. When we find out that we're made of about 25 different extraterrestrial species being modified over the last 2,000 years, 200,000 years, it'll change our perspective. Doctors will look at us differently. When you go in for a blood test, or when you go in to have prescriptions made for you, they'll call your local pharmacy and say, oh yeah, here's a prescription for Dr. Lynch. And I'll pick it up and I'll take it. But what if they come in and say, Dr. Lynch has a rare condition, not a disease, just a condition. He's lactose intolerant, or he has an allergy to something. So what they do is they go to AI in CRISPR and they say, give me the formula so that Dr. Lynch can take his medicine and not be allergic to it. CRISPR just does it. The AI says, yeah, we can do that. Give me his DNA, and then I will create. Now, every geneticist knows that it's worth his salt that all of our conditions, arthritis, blood conditions, advanced aging, comes from 2 genes, number 19 and number 21. And everyone knows that in those things, we can look down the road on how you're aging and know what diseases you're going to have, if you can call it a disease or a condition. So in number 19, I could have rheumatoid arthritis. In number 21, I could have a blood disease, sickle cell anemia, or cancer. It's there. So all we need is to have, say to AI, type in a cure for Dr. Lynch. And in 19 and 21 will be his final conditioning. So what we do is, we just ask the AI, And then, voila, the chemical composition comes out, and so the AI will say, well, we need to correct his DNA, and here's a new readout for his DNA. Let's give him some stem cell injections, or here's a medication that will help him live a little bit longer, reduce his pain, have him survive. We're not that smart, but our AIs are. So let's take this one step further, and many software companies are out there doing this right now, today. And one is called Allegiant Mass Hunter. And they have taken AI, and instead of doing it manually, looking at DNAs and running that manually, which takes at least 3 to 5 weeks, they can do it in a day. Look up Allegiant Mass Hunter. AllegiantMassHunter.com, I think it is. But if you can look that up, they're using AI almost today to go through this DNA research process in days instead of weeks. Soon it'll be in seconds instead of days. We are on the verge of creating, or have the ability to type in what we want as an offspring, as seeding other planets, to create beings that are 2.0, 3.0. They're like us, but they're different. And they can survive in other worlds just like here. They say in India, especially Bombay and New Delhi, India, they've taken 9 years off their lifespans. They'll die 9 years earlier just because of air pollution. Many have reduced their lifespans because they're dehydrated. They drink too much coffee or Coca-Cola. It's destroying their kidneys or destroying their stomachs. We have inundated ourselves with plastics, and jet fuel runs through our chemistry right today. Fish pulled out of the ocean have plastics that they have eaten all through them. And we're next. Mother's milk has jet fuel in it. So when you have a newborn baby and you don't get an analysis on your breast milk, most of the people around the world will have jet fuel in it. And if you're living in a country that has a lot of nuclear power, there's a lot of radiation. Look at Fukushima. One accident, one tsunami shut down, and their nuclear power plants exploded, inundating a whole area with radiation, which will take years off your life. But what if we could find a species that survives that kind of radiation? Not only by taking iodine, but also genetically manipulating so that we don't have any effect to that kind of radiation. This opens the door to a whole new future. Your grandchildren, your children's children, may be so genetically different than you that they're more adaptable, more survivable, and will live longer because of one thing: AI. So let's go a little bit further. What if we want different other possibilities? What if we want to talk to somebody on another planet? We have to use telepathy. Well, I'm not telepathic, I'm not even a psychic. But what if we found that equation? What if we just told AI, I want this child to be telepathic, and AI runs through the DNA and says, shuffles the cards, shuffles the DNA and says, oh, I can come up with that. We can do that. We can make them psychic. We can make them telepathic. And you can talk from here, planet Earth, to that planet, wherever that is, instantaneously, with no RF, and going at the speed of light, which would take years to get there and years to get back. No, let's do it. Let's just do it instantaneously. Let's just make them telepathic. AI, if they could find that selection in that DNA, they could put it together. Many psychics don't know that they're psychic. They don't know how and why they're psychic. They're just psychic. It's just like saying I'm right-handed or I'm left-handed, okay? I'm psychic. But if you look into their DNA, see how they're wired, see how their hippocampus connects, there may be a way, somewhere lost in the sands of time, a DNA that can make us all that way. A combination. Now, we can be as selective as we want. We can say, oh no, I don't want my kid to have a 200 IQ, or I don't want my kid to be telepathic, or whatever. I just want my kid to be healthy and strong. That's easy. That's simple. But will that get us into the 23rd century? We're in the 21st. What about the 22nd and the 23rd centuries? Are we going to survive? Maybe not. Maybe we need to adapt even further. Maybe our AIs will give us that ability to adapt. And we can manufacture our own created beings. Now, a lot of people watch Captain America, and this is all super soldier stuff, but when it gets down to your kid, you can change it. And AI could do that. We are coming into an era where all of this technology is available. If it's available to us, it's available to everyone in the universe. We live in flatland. What's available to the terrorist is available to the peacekeeper. What's available to me is also available to you. It's a tool on how we can use it, either to better our lives or how to destroy our lives. So with every created being that's 2.0 or higher, we have to really wonder, will we be the old baggage that they want to get rid of? And will they continue to tinker with the DNA structure in order to get what they think is more important than what we think today? As our minds evolve, as we evolve, our minds evolve. So we can imagine more, we can have more, we can change more. So there's no more the need for a magic genie in a bottle. The need for a magic genie in a bottle is now a reality. The need for the magic genie is in my computer running by software. If we are made up and been tweaked, altered every so many generations, so we have 25 different extraterrestrial species DNA running through us, just think what we could do in a few years. We could be exactly like them, seeding other worlds, creating beings that can survive that environment, as well as the environment on the Earth. We are a byproduct of thousands of generations. But what if we could reduce that time and those generations, not by random or who you marry or whatever, but through an AI computer? And man, Darwin is gone. We're on our own. And the AI will show us the final product of whatever we desire. So I'm not saying, everybody's perfect or there's any perfection out there. I'm just saying we can change it to become more adaptable. We ourselves could be the beings that create beings. Big responsibility on everyone's shoulders. Talk to your local geneticist about this. It will shock you. Thank you for watching. This has been the Lynch Factor. Sorry about my enunciations. Sometimes I just get caught up into the fervor. Things to think about, things to ponder. This has been the Lynch Factor, and I've been your host, Dr. Michael Lynch. Thank you for watching.